The forest was breathing that night, a slow, ancient rhythm that carried the scent of blood and snow. The moonlight draped the trees in silver, and somewhere among the shadows, a man, no, a beast cloaked in a man's form, followed the trail of iron and sorrow. Each drop of blood on the frosted earth burned into his senses like fire. His wolf stirred restlessly beneath his skin, snarling with possessive anger and confusion. There, mingled with the scent of blood, was something else, something warm, pure, unlike anything he had ever known. He was the Alpha King, Kale, ruler of the Northern Pack, the most feared creature in the realm. His power could command storms, his voice could make armies kneel. Yet now, that power trembled as he followed the faint scent of life fading in the night. When he reached the small clearing, he froze. Lying against the roots of an old oak was a young woman, her body torn, her hands soaked in blood, yet still cradling a small wolf cub to her chest. The cub, no older than a few weeks, whimpered weakly, nuzzling against her torn cloak. For a heartbeat, Kale forgot to breathe. His wolf went silent, then let out a low, mournful sound in his mind, a sound he had never heard before. She was human, and she had saved one of his. Kale knelt beside her, the forest whispering around them. Her eyelashes fluttered, and her lips trembled as she tried to speak, though only a whisper came. "Please, don't let him die." Her voice was faint as the winter wind, but it struck him harder than any blade. She wasn't afraid of him. Not even as his golden eyes glowed brighter, not even when she realized what he was. Her fear was only for the cub. He lifted her in his arms, feeling how cold her skin had become. She was light, fragile, like something made of starlight and sorrow. The cub whimpered again, pressing against her, and Kale gathered both of them. "You foolish girl," he murmured, his voice rough. "You saved my bloodline at the cost of your own." As he carried her through the forest, the moon followed, a silent witness to a fate neither of them yet understood. The wolves of the Northern Pack stirred as their king approached. They had felt his fury before, but now, something was different. He didn't walk with rage. He walked with urgency. With something dangerously close to fear. He entered the great den, a cavern of stone and shadow lit by flickering firelight. The healer wolves rushed to meet him, bowing their heads. "Prepare the chambers," Kale ordered, his voice echoing like thunder. "She bleeds because of us." The healers hesitated. One dared to speak. "She's human, my lord." "Shall we not?" Kale's growl silenced them. "She is under my protection. You will treat her as if she were royal bee." Lude. They obeyed instantly. He placed her upon a bed of furs, his eyes tracing the marks across her skin, deep gashes, bruises, signs of a struggle with something far greater than herself. He could smell the lingering scent of rogues, wild wolves without allegiance, the kind that killed without reason. She must have stumbled upon them, protecting the cub with nothing but her bare hands. Kale's chest tightened. For a long moment, he simply watched her breathe. Every shallow rise and fall of her chest drew something raw and unfamiliar from him. "Who are you?" he whispered. The cub, nestled beside her, opened its tiny eyes, eyes of the same golden hue as Kale's own. And suddenly, the truth hit him like lightning. The cub was no ordinary wolf. It was a royal heir, his nephew, the only child of his late brother, lost during the last attack by rogue wolves. This woman, this fragile, human woman, had saved the last heir of the northern line. Kale turned away, gripping the stone wall with trembling hands. His claws extended without thought. The beast within him howled, a sound filled with gratitude and fury. Gratitude for her bravery, fury at the danger she had faced alone. He looked back at her. Her face was peaceful now, softened by the flickering firelight. Strands of hair clung to her cheeks, still damp with blood and snow. For the first time in years, Kale felt his heart stutter. He had seen countless warriors, countless women of strength and pride. But none had ever looked so utterly selfless. None had ever risked everything for one of his kind. And in that moment, something ancient and sacred stirred in his soul. The bond that existed only once in a lifetime for a wolf. The mate bond. He clenched his jaw, shaking his head as if to deny it. "Impossible," he muttered. "She's human." But the wolf inside him growled low, defiant. "Mine." Hours passed. The healers tended to her wounds, whispering incantations of moonlight and herbs. Kale didn't leave her side. When she stirred in her sleep, he reached out instinctively, brushing his thumb against her hand. Her pulse was weak, but steady. Outside, the storm raged, wind howling like mourning wolves. Inside, Kale sat in silence, the cub asleep beside her. His gaze never wavered. He had sworn long ago never to care again, not after losing everything. But now, fate had brought this fragile creature into his world, bleeding yet unbroken. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would not let her die. As dawn broke over the frozen mountains, the Alpha King rose to his feet, his decision carved deep into the marrow of his being. Guard her, he commanded his pack. Until she wakes, no one touches her, no one questions her. She belongs to me now. And as the first light touched her pale face, the wolf within him whispered once more, softer this time, a vow rather than a claim. Mine to protect. The morning light crept through the cracks of the cavern walls, soft and golden, chasing away the ghosts of the night before. The scent of pine and burning herbs lingered in the air, mingled with something warm, the scent of life returning. For a long while, there was only silence. The fire crackled softly, the cub let out a small whimper in its sleep, and then, she stirred. The girl, her name still unknown to them all, blinked against the faint glow, her lashes fluttering like the wings of a startled bird. Her body ached in places she didn't know could hurt, and every breath felt like dragging fire through her lungs. She tried to move, but a sharp pain in her side forced a gasp from her lips. That small sound broke the stillness. In the shadows, the great Alpha lifted his head. His golden eyes glowed faintly, not with anger, but with an emotion he hadn't let himself feel in years, relief. He had not left her side all night. He hadn't dared. She felt the weight of his gaze before she saw him. Slowly, she turned her head, and her breath caught. A man stood a few feet away, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell carelessly across his forehead. His presence filled the room like a storm that refused to break. His eyes, gods, his eyes were the color of molten gold, fierce yet strangely gentle as they watched her. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice hoarse. Kale took a slow step forward. "You are safe," he said simply. His voice was deep, calm, but something inside it trembled, something he didn't want her to hear. "You're in the heart of my territory. No one will harm you here." Her brows furrowed in confusion. Territory? His? Then, as her memory sharpened, the images came rushing back, the snow, the snarling wolves, the tiny cub crying out, her arms clutching at clothes, the pain tearing through her side. She remembered falling, the cold, the darkness, and now this man, with the voice of thunder and eyes like a predator, stood before her saying she was safe. Her gaze darted to the cub, sleeping peacefully on a pile of soft fur beside her. Tears welled in her eyes. "He's alive," she whispered. Kale followed her gaze and gave a short nod. "Because of you." She looked back at him, bewildered. I couldn't just leave him there. Those wolves, they were going to." Her voice broke, and Kale found himself moving closer without thinking. "You fought rogues with nothing but your bare hands," he said quietly, almost in awe. "You should have died." She gave a weak smile, faint and fragile. "Maybe I should have, but he was just a baby." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with things night. Her of them understood. Kale's wolf stirred beneath his skin, restless. He had never met a human like her, one who spoke of saving a cub as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated, as if the sound of her name might break the spell of this strange place. "Lyra," she said finally. "My name is Lyra." Kale repeated it under his breath, Lyra. The word felt soft, dangerous. It didn't belong in a world of beasts and blood, yet it settled in his chest like a promise. "Lyra," he said, his voice low, "you are safe here. Rest. You've lost much blood." Her eyes, though heavy with exhaustion, lingered on him. "And you? Who are you?" He hesitated. Few ever dared to ask that question so directly. "I am Kale," he said at last, "Alpha of the Northern Pack." Her lips parted slightly, confusion flickering across her features. "Alpha?" she repeated. "You mean, like a wolf?" Something flickered in his golden eyes, a secret revealed too soon. The air between them grew colder, thicker, charged with something she couldn't name. Before he could answer, a sound echoed from the entrance, the low growl of another wolf. A massive figure stepped forward, a man with dark silver eyes and hair as pale as frost. "My king," the man said, bowing his head. "The council demands your presence. They have questions about the human." Lyra stiffened. The human. That word. Kale turned slowly, his voice like steel. "Tell them she is under my protection." "But, now." The man hesitated only a moment longer before bowing deeply and retreating into the tunnel's darkness. When Kale turned back, he found Lyra watching him, fear flickering in her eyes now. What did he mean? What am I doing here? Why do they look at me like I don't belong? Kale drew in a deep breath, every muscle in his body coiled tight. "Because in their eyes," he said slowly, "you don't." Her heart stuttered. "You're saying," he stepped closer. So close she could feel the faint heat radiating from his skin. His scent was wild, pine, earth, storm. His voice softened, but there was no escaping the weight of it. "You are among wolves, Lyra. And I am their king." For a moment, she could only stare at him, her mind struggling to make sense of the impossible. Then her gaze drifted toward the cub again, the same golden eyes, the same faint glow when the firelight touched them. Her voice trembled. "Then he's one of yours?" Kale's jaw clenched. "He is blood of my blood. The last of my brother's line." She looked at the sleeping cub, and something in her heart twisted. "Then, I really did save him." Kale's voice softened, almost reverent. "You saved more than you know." She wanted to ask what he meant, but her strength failed her again. The world tilted, and before she could fall, Kale was there, strong arms catching her, holding her as if she were something precious. Her cheek brushed against his chest, and she could hear his heartbeat, steady, powerful, but uneven. As if something inside him was breaking. "Rest," he murmured. "You've done enough." And though she wanted to protest, her body gave in. Darkness claimed her once more, soft and warm this time, not cruel like before. Kale held her until her breathing steadied again. Then he looked toward the entrance of the chamber where faint light filtered through the snow-dusted stone. His wolf's voice echoed deep within him, restless, certain, unyielding. "She's ours." He closed his eyes, his grip tightening around her. He wanted to deny it, to reject the ancient bond forming between them, but the truth pulsed through every fiber of his being. This human girl had not only saved his heir, she had awakened something inside him that had long been buried under rage and solitude. And as the storm outside began to fade, Kale made a silent vow to the moon goddess herself. He would protect Lyra, whatever the cost. Even if it meant defying his pack. Even if it meant defying fate itself. Outside the Alpha's stronghold trembled beneath the weight of winter's breath. Snow drifted from the heavens like a silent blessing, covering the scars of the land, but inside the stone den of the northern pack, the air was thick, not with peace, but with tension. Word had spread through the pack like wildfire. The Alpha had brought a human into their midst. Some whispered it was madness. Others claimed it was destiny. But all of them feared what it meant. Deep within the heart of the mountain, Lyra awoke again. The fire had burned low, filling the chamber with a soft, amber glow. Her body was wrapped in furs, her wounds carefully bandaged with herbs that gave off a faint, soothing scent. For the first time in days, perhaps weeks, she felt warmth that wasn't from her own struggle to survive. But peace never lasts long among wolves. She stirred, her breath fogging slightly in the cold air, and the small cub beside her woke too, yawning and pawing at her sleeve. The sight brought a faint smile to her lips, despite the ache still lingering in her body. "Hey, little one," she whispered, brushing her fingers through the cub's fur. "Looks like we made it." The cub blinked up at her, then pressed closer, seeking her warmth. She didn't know why, but she felt connected to him, as though their fates had been bound together the night she found him bleeding in the snow. Before she could think further, a deep, commanding voice echoed from the corridor outside. "She's awake." The sound of boots against stone followed, firm and deliberate. The presence that entered made the air itself shift. "Kale, the Alpha King, towering and calm, though his eyes burned with the intensity of a storm barely contained. He wore a black fur cloak draped over his shoulders, his golden gaze fixed on her with that same mixture of power and quiet restraint. "You're healing faster than expected," he said, his voice low but not unkind. "I suppose I have you to thank for that," she murmured. "And your healers?" He nodded slightly, crossing his arms. "They did their part, but it was your strength that kept you alive. Few humans could survive wounds like those." Her brow furrowed. "Few humans? How many have you seen?" Kale hesitated. The truth of it hung heavy between them. Not many humans wandered into wolf territory and lived to tell of it. "Enough," he said finally. "But none like you." Lyra looked away, uncertain how to respond. Everything about this place, about him, felt unreal. And yet, she couldn't deny the strange sense of safety she felt near him, even as fear tugged at the edge of her thoughts. She wanted to ask him more, about what he meant by wolves, about the world she had stumbled into, but before she could, another voice cut through the quiet. "My king." A man entered, tall and sharp-featured, his expression carved from ice. His eyes flicked to Lyra with open hostility. "The council demands an explanation. They fear you've brought danger to us all." Kale's jaw tightened. "They will learn respect," he growled softly. The man didn't flinch. "With respect, my lord, she is human. Her presence here breaks every law our kind has lived by." The pack whispers, "They say the moon goddess will curse us for this." Lyra's chest tightened. "A curse? Because of her?" Kale's voice was calm, but deadly. "Then let them whisper. I will not let harm come to the one who saved my blood." The man looked at her again, his nostrils flaring. "You risk everything for a fragile creature who doesn't belong." Kale's golden eyes darkened, his wolf rising beneath his skin. "Enough, Varric." Silence fell. The man bowed stiffly and withdrew, though not without casting one last, lingering glare at Lyra. When he was gone, Kale turned back to her, his expression softening. "Don't mind him. He forgets who commands this den." Lyra hesitated, then asked quietly, "Why are they so afraid of me?" Kale was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, thoughtful. "Because you are human. And in this world, humans and wolves are not meant to share the same fate." Her eyes searched his face. "And yet, here I am." His lips curved slightly, though there was no humor in it. "Yes, here you are." A pause passed between them, the kind that carried weight and spoken meaning. Lyra glanced at the cub beside her. "You said he's your blood. The last of your brother's line." Kale's gaze followed. "Ed hers." "Yes. His name is Fenric. My brother died protecting him. I found him in the snow," she said softly. "Alone. There were others, wolves, they attacked me. I didn't understand why." Kale's eyes darkened with memory. "Rogues. They've turned wild, hunting without honor. They killed my brother. They would have done the same to you and the cub." Something flickered in her chest, pity, sorrow, a strange pull of understanding. "Then maybe I was meant to find him," she murmured. Kale studied her quietly. "Maybe." The fire cracked between them. Outside, the wind howled like a wounded spirit, and the faint sound of wolves howling echoed through the mountain. Lyra felt the weight of those cries, ancient, fierce, and lonely. "You can understand them, can't you?" she asked softly. Kale's head tilted slightly, surprised by her question. "Yes," he said after a pause. "Their voices are my own." "And me?" she whispered. "What am I to them?" He stepped closer, the shadows bending around him. "To them, you are a stranger. A weakness. A question they can't answer." He stopped before her, so close she could feel the faint hum of his energy in the air. "But to me," he trailed off, as if the words were dangerous to speak aloud. Her heart raced. "To you?" His eyes softened, glowing faintly in the dim firelight. "To me, you are a mystery I cannot ignore." For a moment, neither of them moved. The air felt alive, thick with something neither human nor wolf could explain. Then, from deep within the tunnels, the mournful sound of a horn echoed, a call to council. Kale's gaze hardened. Duty returned to his features like armor. "I must go," he said quietly. "The pack grows restless." Lyra nodded, though her heart twisted strangely at the thought of him leaving. "And what about me?" "You'll stay here," he said firmly. You are not to leave this room. The others wouldn't understand. Her voice dropped, soft but resolute. I don't think you understand either. He paused, studying her. There was no fear in her eyes, only defiance and confusion, the mark of someone who didn't yet realize the power she held over fate itself. Rest, Lyra, he said finally. When I return, I will tell you everything. Then he turned and disappeared into the shadows. The moment he was gone, the chamber felt colder, emptier. Lyra lay back, her eyes drifting toward the flickering fire. The cub pressed closer to her, as if sensing her unease. She stroked his fur absent-mindedly, whispering to him, "What have I gotten myself into, little one?" The cub gave a soft, sleepy whine, and she smiled faintly. "Yeah," she murmured. "I don't know either." Outside, the snow fell harder, covering the den in silence. But deep within the mountain, voices rose in argument, the council's fury at their alphas' decision. And somewhere above it all, unseen beneath the pale gaze of the moon goddess, destiny shifted quietly, its threads weaving tighter between the human girl and the wolf king who had sworn to protect her. The howl of the wind roared across the mountain peaks, shaking loose drifts of snow that cascaded down the cliffs like whispers of old gods. Deep within the heart of the den, Kale walked through the torch-lit tunnels toward the chamber of the council, every step echoing like thunder. His wolf paced within him, uneasy, snarling beneath his skin. He could already hear their voices before he entered. Low, angry, full of distrust. She is a human, Kale. She does not belong here. What if she is a spy? What if she brings ruin? The voices tangled together like the storm outside. When the Alpha King entered, silence fell instantly. 6 elders sat in a circle of stone, their eyes glowing faintly beneath the silver light that streamed in from a hole in the ceiling. The moon herself watched this meeting, silent and judging. Kale's gaze swept over them, wolves old enough to remember wars, wise enough to know fear. He had fought beside some of them. He had bled for all of them. But now, they looked at him as if he were a stranger. The human lives, one elder rasped. Why? Kale stood tall, the weight of his power filling the room. Because she saved one of ours. She saved a cub, another spat. An instinct of pity. That does not make her one of us. She saved my blood, Kale corrected, his voice dangerously calm. The heir of the royal line. She bled in the snow for him when even my warriors could not find him. If she had not, Fenric would be dead, and our line with him. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some looked away, ashamed, others glared harder, unwilling to yield. She did what any mothering creature would do, the eldest wolf growled. His fur had gone white with age, his eyes sharp as broken glass. But kindness does not mean fate. You risk everything by keeping her here. Kale's golden eyes darkened. I risk nothing that I cannot protect. She is a human, the elder snapped. The old laws forbid, the old laws were written in blood and fear, Kale interrupted. His voice shook the very air. And I will not let fear rule me. The elder rose, trembling but defiant. And what will you do when the goddess herself turns her gaze upon this? When she sees that you defy her sacred command, that wolves and humans are never to mix. Kale's jaw clenched. Then let her look. Let her judge me. I will answer for my actions when the moon calls my name. Silence. The firelight flickered, painting shadows across the carved stone walls. For a moment, no one dared speak. Then the youngest of the council, a she-wolf named Naira, spoke softly. Quote, "You feel something for her, don't you?" Her words cut through the air like a blade. The others turned sharply, but she did not falter. "I can smell it on you, my king. The bond." Kale's wolf howled inside his chest, a raw, dangerous sound. He took a step forward, his power radiating in waves. "Be careful, Naira," he said quietly. "The bond is not something to name so lightly." She met his gaze without fear. "It's not something that can be hidden, either." The air thickened. The elders exchanged wary glances. The bond, the sacred, uncontrollable connection between soulmates, forged only once in a lifetime. To find it was a gift from the moon goddess herself. But to find it in a human, that was unheard of. Kale turned away, his hands clenched. She knows nothing of this. And she never will. She will recover and then leave these lands. Will you let her go? Naira asked softly. He didn't answer. The elder who had first spoken leaned forward. You claim she saved our heir. Then perhaps she has a purpose. But if she stays, she must be watched. The pack is restless. They say your judgment is clouded. Kale's eyes flashed. Let them talk. None will touch her. He turned sharply and strode from the chamber, his cloak sweeping behind him like a shadow. The air seemed to tremble in his wake, and when he was gone, the council murmured in uneasy unison. The Alpha's heart has been claimed, the old wolf said. And by a human. The goddess will not forgive this. Back in the healing chamber, Lyra sat by the fire, unaware of the storm her existence had unleashed. The cub, Fenric, rested beside her, his tiny body curled into the warmth of her lap. She hummed softly, an old lullaby she barely remembered, something her mother had sung when she was a child. Her voice was fragile but full of peace. The sound filled the stone walls like sunlight. Then, from the tunnel beyond, she heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. The air grew colder. A shadow appeared in the doorway, not Kale this time, but another wolf she hadn't seen before. He was tall, with pale hair and cruel eyes that glinted like steel. You're the human, he said flatly. She stiffened. And you are? He smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. A soldier of the pack. You should not be here. Her hand instinctively reached for the cub. Your Alpha said I was under his protection. The man's gaze darkened. His protection has limits. He stepped closer, and Lyra's heart pounded. Something primal in her screamed danger, though she couldn't explain why. Before she could react, a deep growl shook the room. The soldier froze. Kale stood at the entrance, his eyes blazing gold. Leave, he ordered. The man hesitated, trembling under the weight of that single word. Then, without another glance, he bowed his head. ND disappeared into the tunnels. Kale turned his gaze to her, and for a moment, the fury in his eyes softened. Did he touch you? No, she whispered. But he looked at me like I was something that didn't belong here. Kale's expression tightened. That's because to them, you don't. Her throat tightened. And what about you? Do I belong here to you? He looked away, his jaw hardening. You belong where you choose, Lyra. But the choice must come when you are strong enough to survive it. She searched his face for a hint of what he truly felt, but his expression gave nothing away. Still, she could feel it, the strange pull between them, invisible but undeniable. Why are they so afraid of me? She asked. I've done nothing wrong. Kale's voice dropped low, as if the walls themselves were listening. Because humans once destroyed what the wolves held sacred. Long ago, before my time, there was a war, and the blood of that war still stains the snow. Lyra's eyes widened. A war between wolves and humans? He nodded slowly. A war born of fear and betrayal. Our kind hides because of it. We trust no humans, and they do not even know we exist anymore. She stared at him in disbelief. Then why save me? For a long moment, he said nothing. The firelight caught the gold in his eyes, making them look almost human. Because when I found you, he said finally, you were dying, but your arms were wrapped around a wolf's child, not to harm him, but to protect him. You risked your life for what my kind would call a beast. That is not something I could ignore. Lyra's breath caught. She looked down at the sleeping cub and felt tears prick her eyes. I couldn't let him die. Kale's voice softened, deep and quiet. And I cannot let you die. Their eyes met, two worlds colliding in silence. The distance between them was small, but it felt infinite. Then, with a sigh, Kale turned away. The council is watching you now. You must stay hidden. If they decide you are a threat. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. The meaning was clear. Lyra reached out, her hand trembling slightly. Kale? He stopped, half turned toward her. I don't understand what's happening, she said softly. But thank you, for saving me. For not letting them hurt me. Something flickered in his gaze, a quiet pain, deep and unspoken. Don't thank me, he murmured. Not yet. Then he left her alone with the fire and the sleeping cub, the weight of his words lingering long after his footsteps faded. Outside, the storm broke. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the mountains like bones of ancient gods. And beneath that light, Kale stood at the mouth of the den, staring into the distance, toward the rising moon. He could feel the bond tightening between them, as inevitable as the pull of the tides. He wanted to fight it, to defy fate, but the wolf within him whispered what his heart already knew. She is yours, Chaol. And nothing, not law, not blood, not the goddess herself, will change that. The night lay heavy upon the northern mountains, the kind of night when the stars hid and even the wind dared not whisper too loudly. In the heart of the wolves' domain, silence fell like a shroud. But beneath that stillness, something ancient was stirring, something older than kings or packs, older than the mountain itself. Chaol stood alone at the edge of the cliff that overlooked the valley, his dark cloak whipping against the icy gusts. Below him, the forest stretched endlessly, black and vast, and beyond that, faint lights flickered, the distant fires of rogue camps. They had multiplied again. He could smell them even from here, the stench of rebellion, of hunger, of madness. But it wasn't just the rogues that haunted his thoughts tonight. It was her, Lyra. The name lingered on his tongue like a forbidden prayer. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, pale and fragile against the firelight, eyes full of defiance and confusion. A human among wolves, a heart that did not understand the danger of the world she had fallen into. And yet, she wasn't weak. No human could have survived what she had. She carried something within her, something the wolf in him recognized, even if his mind refused to. He lifted his gaze to the moon, full and bright. "Why her?" he murmured, his voice raw against the cold wind. "Why send her to me?" For a moment there was no answer. Only the faint rustle of the forest far below. Then, suddenly, the world seemed to shift. The wind stopped. The air thickened. The silver light of the moon brightened until it burned against his skin. Chaol fell to one knee, his breath catching as the world dissolved into shadow and light. And then she appeared, the moon goddess, her form woven of light and mist, her eyes endless as the sky. When she spoke, her voice was like the sound of every wolf howling in unison, both beautiful and terrible. Chaol of the northern bloodline. He bowed his head. "My goddess, you question what I have sent you." "I question fate," he replied, his voice steady though his heart pounded. "You've bound me to a human. Do you mock me, or is this punishment?" The goddess's light flickered, her tone neither kind nor cruel. "It is not mockery nor punishment. It is balance." Chaol's brows furrowed. "Balance? You are wolf, born of power, ruled by instinct. She is human, born of heart, ruled by spirit. You are darkness. She is light. The world is shifting, Chaol. The old lines between wolf and man will break soon. You were chosen to stand at the edge of that dawn." He rose slowly, defiance earning behind his golden eyes. "You would have me risk my pack, my people, for her? You would have risked your soul without her." Her words struck him like a blow. He flinched, and for a brief moment, the mask of the Alpha fell away. Beneath it was a man, tired, lonely, haunted by ghosts he could never bury. "She will destroy everything," he whispered. "The council already turns against me. The rogues gather in the east. They say the human brings bad omens. They're not wrong." The goddess's voice softened. "What they call a curse is often the beginning of change. The human carries something far greater than she knows, and you are bound to protect it." "Protect her." He clenched his fists. "And if I fail? Then darkness will consume both worlds, yours and hers. The choice lies with you, Alpha King. But know this, the bond cannot be undone." Her light flared one final time, blinding, searing, and then she was gone. The world returned to silence. Chaol stood trembling, the cold biting into his skin. But the chill that gripped him was not from the wind. It was from the weight of destiny pressing down on his shoulders. He turned and began the long walk back to the den. In the healing chamber, Lyra stirred from uneasy dreams. The fire had burned low again, shadows flickering along the stone walls like restless spirits. The cub slept soundly beside her, but something in the air felt different, charged, heavy, as though the world was holding its breath. Her wounds ached faintly, but she ignored them. A strange pull urged her toward the tunnel. She hesitated only a moment before wrapping a fur around her shoulders and stepping out. The corridors were quiet, lit only by faint moonlight spilling through cracks in the rock. She followed the sound of the wind until she found an opening that led to the cliffs outside. When she stepped into the night, the sight stole her breath. The sky was a canvas of silver and shadow. Snowflakes drifted gently through the air, glowing faintly in the moonlight. And there, a short distance away, stood Kale, tall and motionless, his gaze fixed on the sky. She hesitated, then called softly, "Kale?" He turned slowly. The look in his eyes made her heart stutter. Something had changed in him, something deep and solemn. "You shouldn't be out here," he said quietly. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "It feels like the world is humming." Kale gave a small nod. "It does that before it breaks." She frowned. "Breaks?" He didn't answer right away. The wind swept between them, carrying the scent of pine and frost. Finally, he said, "The goddess spoke tonight." Lyra blinked. "The goddess? Our kind was born under her blessing," Kale explained. "She governs our fate, decides which bloodlines rise, which fall, which bonds are forged." "And what did she say?" He hesitated, the muscles in his jaw tightening. "That you are important." She let out a soft, incredulous laugh. "Me? I'm just a village healer who got lost in the woods." Kale's eyes softened. "You are far more than that, Lyra. I can feel it." The goddess does not waste her words. She looked away, her voice trembling. "I don't understand any of this. Your people hate me. I don't belong here. Why can't I just go home?" Kale stepped closer, the air around him shifting with quiet power. "Because it's no longer safe for you out there. The rogues are moving. They've scented your blood." Her eyes widened. "My blood? Why would they care about me?" "Because," he said quietly, "the goddess marked you, even if you can't see it yet." Lyra's heart pounded. "Marked me?" Kale reached out slowly, his fingers hovering near her cheek. "You carry something ancient in you. I don't know what it is yet, but it calls to every wolf who breathes the night air." It called to me. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, time stopped. The bond pulsed, invisible, alive. She felt it then, a warmth spreading through her chest, a pull toward him that defied logic. It frightened her, but it also filled her with a strange peace. Kale drew back suddenly, breaking the connection. He turned away, his voice rough. "You should rest. Tomorrow, we leave this place." "Leave? The rogues will come soon. The pack is divided. I will not risk your life here." Lyra wanted to protest, but something in his tone silenced her. There was a weight in his words, a promise she didn't yet understand. As she turned to go, she paused. "Kale," she said softly, "do you ever wish you could choose your own fate?" He looked at her over his shoulder, the moonlight catching in his golden eyes. "Every night," he said. "But fate always chooses first." She left him standing there, staring up at the cold, perfect moon, the same moon that had bound their worlds together. And high above, unseen by either of them, a shadow moved across the tree line, a pair of red eyes watching from the dark. The rogues had found their scent. The hunt had begun. The forest trembled long before dawn. Even before the first howl split the silence, the air itself seemed to thicken with dread. The wolves of the northern pack could sense it, a coming storm not of wind or rain, but of claws and fury. Kale was already awake when it began. He stood at the entrance of the den, his breath forming faint clouds against the cold. His instincts screamed, ancient and undeniable, danger was near. Every leaf, every gust of air carried the scent of blood and iron. Behind him, Lyra stirred. She had not slept much, her dreams were filled with flashes of silver light, the whisper of the goddess, and the sound of Kale's voice call. Ling her name through the dark. She sat up slowly, wincing as her half-healed wounds stretched against the bandages. Kale's head turned the moment she moved. Even with his back to her, he sensed it, the rhythm of her heartbeat, the faint shift of her breathing. His wolf stirred within, restless, protective. "Get ready," he said quietly. Her voice came softly. "For what?" He didn't answer immediately. His golden eyes scanned the horizon, sharp and calculating. "They've found us." She froze. "The rogues?" "Yes." His tone was grim. "Too many to face here. We move before they close in." He tossed her a thick cloak and a pair of boots. Lyra caught them clumsily, her heart racing. "But I can barely walk." Kale's gaze softened for just a moment. "You'll have to trust me." There was no time to argue. Outside, a deep howl rose from the east, long, guttural, filled with hunger. It was answered by another from the west, then another, until the mountains themselves seemed to echo with death. Kale's wolves began to stir, eyes gleaming in the shadows of the den. The pack was loyal, but fear rippled through them like wildfire. Alpha, one of the sentinels, growled, lowering his head. They come in numbers we've never seen. The rogues are uniting. Kale's expression darkened. Then they've found a leader. A murmur passed through the pack. Even Lyra felt the tension. She could feel the pulse of energy in the air, ancient and raw. Kale turned to her. Stay close to me. No matter what happens, do not run into the forest alone. Promise me. I promise, she whispered. He nodded once, then shifted. It was still breathtaking to witness the transformation. One heartbeat, a man. The next, a creature of power and grace, black as midnight, with eyes of burning gold. His fur rippled like shadow and smoke, his form towering and lethal. He lowered his head slightly toward Lyra, who stared at him with a mix of fear and awe. Then, with one swift motion, he knelt and nudged her forward, a silent command. She climbed onto his back, clutching the thick fur as he rose. And then they ran. The pack followed, silent and deadly, moving through the forest like ghosts. Snow whipped past them, branches cracked beneath their weight, the earth itself seeming to yield to the power of their stride. Lyra pressed close, her heart pounding with the rhythm of his movements. She could feel the heat of him beneath her, the strength of his muscles, the controlled fury of a predator ready to defend his own. But the rogues were faster than expected. From the darkness behind, she heard them, the snapping of twigs, the low growl of pursuit. Shapes moved between the trees, their eyes glinting red. Dozens of them, maybe more. Kale's pace quickened, his breath ragged in the cold air. The pack began to break formation, trying to draw the rogues away, but they were outnumbered. Howls erupted all around, signals of battle, of blood. Then, suddenly, the forest opened into a clearing, and Kale skidded to a halt. Before them stood the frozen river, wide and dark, its surface fractured with thin lines of ice. He turned his head, calculating. Crossing it would be dangerous. But staying meant death. Lyra felt his hesitation. Kale, he growled softly, warning her to hold on. Then, with one mighty leap, he bounded onto the ice. The surface cracked beneath his weight, spiderwebs of fissures spreading in every direction. Lyra gasped as water splashed against her legs, freezing instantly. Behind them, the rogues burst into the clearing, wild, snarling, eyes ablaze. They looked more beast than wolf, their fur matted with blood and frost. At their front was a massive gray wolf with one eye, the mark of the rogue leader. Kale turned, baring his teeth in a feral snarl that made even the ice tremble. The one-eyed wolf stepped forward, his voice low and cruel. So it's true. The mighty Alpha hides behind a human. Kale's growl deepened, echoing through the clearing. He did not shift back, his answer came in the language of wolves, ancient and deadly. Touch her, and you die. The rogue laughed, a harsh, grating sound. She bleeds like prey. Why protect her? Kale's golden eyes flashed. Because she is mine. The words hit Lyra like thunder. Her breath caught, though she barely understood their meaning. But the rogues did, and it only enraged them further. With a roar, the leader lunged. Kale met him midair, their bodies colliding with a sound like thunder. Claws tore into fur, teeth snapped, blood sprayed across the ice. The pack's cries rose around them as battle erupted, a chaos of motion and violence. Lyra stumbled backward, clutching the edge of a fallen branch for balance. All around her, wolves clashed and snarled, the air thick with steam and blood. She wanted to help, but what could she do? She was human, fragile, powerless. And yet, as she looked down, something pulsed beneath her skin, faint, glowing. Her breath hitched. A mark, faintly luminous, like silver fire, had appeared just above her wrist. The shape of a crescent moon. The goddess's mark. Without understanding how or why, she lifted her hand. The light flared brighter, spilling across the snow. The battling wolves froze for a fraction of a second, stunned. The light spread, wrapping Kale in its glow, healing, strengthening, binding. He roared, a sound that shook the night. His strength doubled. With one final strike, he drove the rogue leader onto the ice, teeth sinking deep into his throat. The wolf went limp. Silence followed. The rogues hesitated, their leader's blood staining the S. Now. Then, one by one, they began to retreat, vanishing into the trees like smoke. Kale stood panting, his chest heaving, fur matted with blood, some his, most not. His golden eyes met Lyra's glowing ones. The light from her wrist faded slowly. She swayed, dizzy. He shifted back into human form just in time to catch her as she fell. Lyra. He cradled her close, his voice rough with fear. What did you do? Her eyes fluttered open weakly. I don't know, it just happened. He held her tighter, his heart pounding. The scent of her blood, the fading light, it all meant one thing. The goddess's prophecy was already in motion. Rest now, he murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You're safe. Her voice was barely a whisper. Am I? He didn't answer. Because somewhere deep in the forest, another howl rose, low, ancient, and far stronger than any before. A warning that this was not the end. The true alpha of the rogues had heard what happened. And he was coming. The dawn rose slowly over the northern mountains, washing the forest in pale shades of gold and frost. Smoke still lingered from the night's battle, thin trails curling into the cold morning air like ghostly fingers. Blood stained the snow where wolves had fallen, and silence hung heavy, broken only by the faint moan of the wind. Kale stood at the edge of the clearing, his bare chest streaked with dirt and dried blood, his breath slow and controlled. Every muscle in his body ached, but his eyes, those golden, burning eyes, stayed fixed on the horizon. He knew what was coming. The fight with the rogue pack had been brutal, but it wasn't over. That skirmish was only a warning, a taste of something greater moving in the shadows. Behind him, Lyra stirred. She lay wrapped in thick furs inside a hollowed log shelter, still weak from the power that had burst through her the night before. Her hair clung to her damp face, and her pulse fluttered softly against her throat. Kale turned at the sound of her faint whimper, crossing the space between them in 2 strides. He knelt, brushing his thumb gently over her forehead. The fever had broken, but exhaustion clung to her like a second skin. Her hand twitched, and when he reached for it, the faint silver glow of the moon mark pulsed once beneath her wrist, then dimmed. The sight sent a shiver through him, not of fear, but of recognition. The mark wasn't fading. It was growing stronger. He could feel it, the same way his wolf could sense the moon. Lyra's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, she looked lost, caught between dream and waking. Then her gaze found him, and a fragile smile touched her lips. You stayed. He huffed a quiet laugh. You think I'd leave you out here alone? She tried to sit up, wincing as her body protested. The others? Most survived. A few are scouting the trails ahead. He helped her to sit, his hands steady and gentle. We can't stay here long. The rogues will come again. Stronger. She nodded slowly, though confusion clouded her face. I don't understand any of this, Kale. That light, that mark, it came from me. But I'm not, he met her gaze. Not wolf. I know. Then how? He stood, pacing to the edge of the clearing. There's a place, he said finally. North of the Silver Ridge. The Sacred Mountains. It's where the Moonstone rests, the heart of our origin. If your mark is what I think it is, that's where we'll find answers. She hesitated. The Moonstone? Like a relic? Not a relic. His voice was quiet, reverent. A living piece of the goddess herself. Lyra's heart pounded. The idea of such power terrified her. But the thought of not knowing, of wandering blind through a destiny she didn't understand, frightened her more. When do we leave? She asked. Kale's lips curved slightly. You don't waste time, do you? I don't have much left to waste, she said softly, tracing the faint scar along her wrist. For a moment, his eyes softened. There was something unspoken in his gaze, admiration, maybe even affection, but it vanished as quickly as it came. He turned away, his expression hardening again. We move at dusk. Rest while you can. By the time night fell, the forest was alive again, not with peace, but with warning. The wolves moved silently through the undergrowth, their eyes catching the moonlight like shards of amber. Lyra rode on horseback behind Kale now, wrapped tightly in a thick cloak, her arms around his waist. The journey north was treacherous. The terrain grew steeper, the trees denser, and the temperature colder with every passing mile. The further they went, the more the world seemed to change, the air humming faintly, the snow glowing under the moon as though touched by some unseen hand. Kale's voice broke the silence after hours of travel. The sacred mountains were forbidden to most. Even alphas don't tread there unless summoned. Then why are you taking me? She asked softly. Because you're already summoned, he said simply. That mark, it's a call. I can feel it pulling us north. She pressed her cheek against his back, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Do you believe in fate, Kale? He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was low, distant. I used to believe in strength. In loyalty. In power. Fate? He shook his head. Fate has never been kind to wolves. But maybe it's changing, she murmured. He gave a faint, humorless smile. Maybe. By the second night, the pack had dwindled to only a few close guards. The rest had stayed behind to guard their territory, or what was left of it. Kael led Lyra higher into the mountains, where the trees gave way to jagged rock and biting wind. They stopped at a ledge overlooking the valley below. From there, the view was breathtaking, endless stretches of silver snow and forest under the moon's glow. But what caught Lyra's eye was not the beauty. It was the light. Far in the distance, nestled between two peaks, something shimmered. A silver glow, pulsing, alive. The moonstone, Kale said quietly. We're close. But before they could move, the sound of howling shattered the stillness. Not the low, mournful song of Kale's pack. This was darker, deeper, filled with hunger. Kale stiffened instantly, his senses flaring. They're here. The rogues? Lyra whispered. He turned to her, his eyes already glowing faint gold in the darkness. No, worse. Before she could ask, a shadow detached itself from the rocks above them. A figure landed softly in the snow, tall, broad-shouldered, eyes like burning coals. Not wolf, not man, something in between. Kale, the stranger said, his voice smooth, dangerous. Brother. Lyra's heart skipped. Brother? Kale's jaw clenched. Ronan. The newcomer smiled, a smile with no warmth. It's been a long time. Not long enough. Ronan took a step forward, his gaze flicking to Lyra. So the rumors are true. You've taken a human under your protection. The great Alpha King, tainted by mortal blood. She is under my care, Kale growled. Care? Ronan tilted his head. Or curse? The goddess marks her, and you think that's protection? No, brother. That's a chain. One that will drag us all down. Lyra's pulse quickened. Who are you? She demanded. He looked at her, amused. I'm the rightful heir of the Blood Moon lineage. The one the goddess abandoned when she chose him. He nodded toward Kale. And now I see why. She's playing her little games again, mixing light and darkness. But I won't let it end the same way. Kale's eyes flared. You'd stand against me? I'd stand for what was lost, Ronan hissed. You were never meant to rule, Kale. And that human, she's the key to everything the wolves have forgotten. Power. Immortality. The true bond. Kale took a step forward, muscles coiling like a drawn bow. You touch her, and I will tear out your throat. Ronan smiled darkly. You'll have to find me first. Before Kale could move, the ground beneath them erupted. Rogues poured from the shadows, dozens of them, their eyes glowing red, their growls filling the night. Kale shifted instantly, his massive wolf form slamming into the first wave. Lyra fell back, scrambling to her feet as chaos exploded around her. The mark on her wrist burned, searing, alive. The silver light flared again, brighter than before. She gasped, raising her hand as the glow expanded, forming a bari. Of light between her and the oncoming wolves. Ronan snarled, shielding his eyes. So it's true. The power of the moonstone lives in her. Kale lunged for him, but Ronan vanished into the mist, his laughter echoing through the peaks. When the last of the rogues fled, silence fell once more. Snow drifted down softly, covering the blood. Kale shifted back, breathing hard. His chest rose and fell with exhaustion and fury. He turned to Lyra, to the woman standing in the center of the clearing, bathed in moonlight, trembling but unbroken. Her voice was faint. He called you brother. Kale's eyes met hers. He said quietly. Before he lost his soul to the darkness. Lyra stepped closer. And he wants the moonstone. No. Kale's gaze hardened. He wants you. She swallowed, fear and confusion warring inside her. Why me? Kale looked up at the distant glow of the sacred mountain. Because you carry the other half of what he's been searching for. The other half? He nodded slowly. The goddess didn't just bless the wolves, Lyra. She blessed humanity once too. And you're her bridge. The wind howled across the peaks, carrying with it the sound of distant thunder. Kale turned toward the mountain, his jaw set. The time for hiding is over, he said. We go to the moonstone. We end this, or the war will begin. Lyra followed his gaze, her heart pounding with the weight of what she was becoming. Somewhere deep inside her, she felt the truth stir, ancient, vast, unstoppable. The blood of the moon had chosen her. And there was no turning back. The sacred mountains rose like jagged teeth against the night sky, their peaks lost beneath veils of cloud and frost. As Kale and Lyra drew nearer, the air grew thin and strange, alive with energy that hummed against the skin like static. Every breath they took was heavy with the weight of something ancient watching them, waiting. For 3 days, they climbed without rest. Snow fell in a constant whisper, erasing their tracks as quickly as they were made. Kale moved with relentless determination, his wolf instincts guiding them through narrow passes and half-frozen ridges. Lyra followed close behind, her exhaustion deep but her resolve deeper still. Sometimes, when the wind stilled, she could hear it, a low hum, faint but steady, echoing from the heart of the mountain. It wasn't sound exactly. It was something deeper, resonating in her blood, in the mark on her wrist. Every night, it glowed brighter, responding to the pull of whatever called her from above. On the 4th night, they reached the high cliffs overlooking a wide plateau. From there, the view was otherworldly. The forest stretched endlessly below, blanketed in silver snow, while above them, the moon hung full and impossibly bright, casting everything in pale light. At the plateau's center stood the ruins of an ancient temple, half buried in ice, towering pillars carved with symbols older than language, and in the middle, a single pedestal of smooth black stone. The moonstone. It was smaller than Lyra had imagined, no larger than her hands put together, but it glowed with a light that seemed to pulse with life, silver veins running through its core. The air around it shimmered, bending the light like heat on sand. Kale stopped at the temple's edge, his voice low and reverent. We're here. Lyra stepped forward slowly, drawn toward the moonstone as though by invisible threads. Her heart pounded with every step, her breath forming little clouds in the freezing air. The closer she got, the louder the hum became, until it filled her mind completely. Kale reached out suddenly, catching her wrist. Careful, he warned. It tests those who approach. I can feel it calling me, she whispered, her eyes never leaving the stone. It wants me to touch it. That's what I'm afraid of, he murmured. For a long moment they stood there, the moonlight washing over them, the silence between them thick with tension. Then, slowly, she pulled free of his grip and stepped closer. The instant her fingers brushed the surface of the moonstone, the world exploded into light. She gasped as power surged through her, not cold, not warm, but something beyond sensation, a current that filled her veins with stars. The mark on her wrist flared, its silver glow merging with the moonstone's pulse until they beat as one. Kale shielded his eyes, his wolf howling inside him in recognition and fear. Lyra, he shouted, but his voice sounded distant, swallowed by the light. Then everything vanished. Lyra found herself standing in a vast expanse of silver mist. The ground beneath her feet was made of light, the air heavy with the scent of rain and moonflowers. She wasn't cold anymore. She wasn't even sure she was alive. Where am I? She whispered. A voice answered, soft and resonant, the same voice that had haunted her dreams. Between worlds, child of the moon. Lyra turned, and there she was, the moon goddess, radiant and terrible in her beauty. Her hair flowed like molten silver, her eyes infinite, her presence both comforting and crushing. Lyra fell to her knees instinctively. I don't understand. Why me? Why did you mark me? The goddess smiled gently. Because the world is dying, and only those of 2 worlds may heal it. 2 worlds? Wolf and human, flesh and spirit. You carry the last spark of a bond that was broken long ago. Lyra shook her head, confused. But I'm not powerful. You are the descendant of the first healer I ever touched, the goddess said, stepping closer. When I made the Wolves, I gave them strength, fury, loyalty, but I also gave them a curse. They were bound to the moon, slaves to its cycle. To balance them, I blessed the first human healer with the power to mend what wolves could not, hearts. Her gaze softened. You are her blood, and Kale is of mine. Lyra's breath caught. Kale? The alpha of alphas, the one destined to restore the bond. But Ronan, the goddess's expression darkened. Ronan seeks to claim what was never his. He carries the rage of the broken, the echo of the first wolf who defied me. He believes the moonstone will make him free, but it will only destroy him. The bond he seeks to shatter is the thread that keeps your worlds from tearing apart. Lyra's heart pounded. Then what do I have to do? The goddess lifted her hand, touching Lyra's chest lightly. When the moon bleeds red and shadow rises, you must stand beside the Alpha King. You must bind your souls, not by law, not by power, but by love. Only then will the curse break. Lyra's eyes widened. Bind our souls? The heart must choose freely, the goddess said. That is the law of the bond. If you turn away, both bloodlines will perish. The light began to fade. The mist swirled around her, pulling her back. Lyra reached out desperately. Wait, what if I fail? Then the moon will weep fire, the goddess whispered. And darkness will reign. Then the world shattered. Lyra woke with a gasp, snowflakes melting against her lips. She was lying on the temple floor, Kale hovering over her, his face pale with worry. Lyra, he breathed, relief flooding his features. You're back. She blinked, disoriented. The moonstone had dimmed again, its glow faint now, but something had changed, she could feel it. A connection humming in her veins, a thread stretching between her and Kale, alive and pulsing. I saw her, she whispered. The moon goddess. She told me what we are. Kale froze. What we are. Lyra met his gaze. We're bound, Kale, not by choice, but by fate. For a moment, he said nothing. The wind howled through the temple's broken walls, carrying flakes of snow through the air. Then, quietly, he said, Tell me what she showed you. So she did. Every word. The truth of the curse, the first healer, the bond that was meant to unite wolf and human. And when she finished, Kale stood silent, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. If this is true, then Ronan won't stop until he takes you. He'll use your bond to reach the moonstone. Lyra swallowed hard. Then we have to stop him. He turned to her, his eyes fierce and golden in the moonlight. No, I have to stop him. You'll go back to the valley. My wolves will protect you. No, she said, stepping closer. You can't fight this alone. The goddess said. He caught her wrist suddenly. His grip firm but gentle. Lyra, he said, his voice low, raw, I've spent my whole life fighting for my people. I've seen mates torn apart by fate, packs destroyed by prophecy. I won't let that happen to you. Her eyes shone with defiance. And I won't let you die trying to protect me. They stood inches apart, the cold forgotten, the bond between them thrumming like the heartbeat of the earth itself. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Kale released her hand slowly. If fate demands this bond, then so be it. But I'll fight to make sure it's our choice, not the goddess's. Lyra nodded, her breath catching. Then we fight together. Kale turned toward the temple doors, his silhouette framed by moonlight. Then we make ready, he said. Because when the moon turns red, Ronan will come for us both. And above them, unseen in the clouds, the moon flickered once, as if in warning, before bleeding faintly crimson at its edges. The final battle was beginning.